Hello, welcome to a new video, and it is that time of the month where it is time for my reading wrap up. So in the month of September I finished 15 books. I had no DNFs, which is great because the last few months I've been having DNFs and that's not good. I read a total of 6,124 pages and I listened to 62.5 hours of audiobooks. All but one of these books I had on audiobook and like listened along with the physical, or just had only the audiobook, and it was a good time. Like, I don't think I would have got through half as many of these books if it wasn't for audiobooks. So I'm loving audiobooks right now. So rating wise, it was a bit of a mixed bag. So I had no 2 stars, which is good. I had 2 3 stars, 6 4 stars and 7 5 stars. But only I think only 2 books were rereads, so that's good. Makes a change for me. Obviously I took part in the Vampire Diaries readathon and I read all 10 books for the prompts, and also 5 extra I logged for just the page count for points. So I feel like I did pretty good for my team, which I'm very happy about. But let's just get stuck in with the books I read. So first up was Cockheart by Peter Bunzel. This was one of my 3 stars. This was an okay middle grade. I feel like maybe if I'd read this back when I was reading a lot of middle grade, I might have enjoyed it more. I was a little bit bored, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna finish the series or continue the series, that's the word. I'm not gonna continue the series with this, which means I am unhauling all 4, which is good because it's gonna free up some space on my shelves, which I desperately need. Next up was One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. It has been so long since I read anything by Karen M. McManus. I've been getting all of her books because I get the sprayed edge editions. I've been getting all of them as they come out, and so far I've only read One of Us Is Lying, which obviously is the first book in this series, and 2 Can Keep a Secret, which is a standalone. I really enjoyed One of Us Is Lying when it first came out, and this was a 5-star. I actually think I preferred this, well actually I know I preferred this to the first book. I think it was so much better. The stakes actually felt a lot higher in this one, and it was thrilling, which was great because this was my pick for thriller. Next up was True Life by J. Kristoff. This was the final book in the Deviate series, and I know a lot of people have not been enjoying this. However, this was a 5-star for me. I really enjoyed this series as a whole. I liked how the first book followed one character, the second book followed a different character, and then this one wrapped up everything together, and it was just so well done. And I do understand why some people did not like it because of the writing style, and it's like at times it did feel a little bit like because obviously this is his first sci-fi that he's written on his own, because he's written the Aurora Cycle and the Illuminae Files with Amy Kaufman, and it did feel a little bit like he was trying to have that like sort of writing and humour that he shares with Amy Kaufman, and I don't think it worked as well as it does in those other 2 series. But I still really enjoyed this. I really liked the characters. I liked the plot. I thought the ending was great. And yeah. Next up, we have The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I'm going to be honest, the only reason I read this was because I have Weather Girl somewhere up here. And I've heard amazing things about Business or Pleasure from Meg. And actually, of all 3 of those books by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and I like to read in release order, whether they are series or not. So X-Talk was first, so I read this. I got it from my library on audiobook, and this was a 4-star. I actually ended up really enjoying this. There was a part near the beginning where I didn't think I was going to be able to like continue with it because it has my biggest trigger again, which is really frustrating that contemporary romances that are supposed to be cute have to have this thing. Like, it's unnecessary. Stop it. Leave the parents alone. But anyway, I was overall already enjoying the characters and everything, so I tried to push through, and apart from one bit where it's very obvious she's about to start talking about the thing again, which I did actually skip like a minute, and I didn't listen to that part, but it didn't bring anything more to the plot. Like, it was absolutely fine to miss that bit. And I ended up really enjoying this, and it was a 4-star, and it was a pretty high 4-star as well. So I'm definitely going to be continuing with Rachel Lynn Solomon's books. Next up was Star Wars Thrawn by Timothy Zahn. This is the first book in a separate trilogy that Timothy Zahn has written for Thrawn. I am 2 books into his other trilogy for Thrawn, and technically there's a reading order for all of the Thrawn books, but so that one takes place before Star Wars Rebels. This series takes place, like, the beginning of this book is you finding out how Thrawn comes into the Empire to work with Palpatine and all of those. So I really enjoyed getting to see that side of him, and I'm really excited. When I reserved this one at the library, I reserved the other 2, and I'm still waiting. It tried to give me the 3rd book yesterday, and I had to manage the hold so it like delivers like in a month or something, because I'm still waiting for book 2, which is really frustrating. So yeah, I'm really enjoying reading everything about Thrawn, because he is such an interesting character. This is why villains are my favourite, and I don't mean in the sense that, oh my god, I love Thrawn. Like, Thrawn's just like a really interesting person to read about. Like, his character arc is just so in depth, and there's so much background to it, and he's just fascinates me. Like, he is so well written. Don't know if I mentioned, but this was a 4-star. Next up, we had Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses by Kristen O'Neill. This was my other 3-star. I was not a fan of this. It had a really good premise. So she has a chronic illness, and she makes friends with someone who turns out also has a chronic illness, but the chronic illness is lycanthropy. She's a werewolf. I feel like parts of it were really rushed, but there was also some like slightly problematic things which I didn't properly see until I read some reviews from other people. But also I feel like with a lot of the chronic illnesses, they were not researched well enough. And whilst the premise was great, if just a little bit more research had been done, it would have been so much better, and that probably would have bumped it up to a 4-star. But it just fell a bit flat for me, which was a shame. Next we have Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. This is the final book in the Last Hour series. That's it. Buy the Angel Along after this live show. Buy the Angel Along is done, and I'm really sad about it, because it's been an amazing almost 2 years reading these with people. But I enjoyed this a lot. I loved this when I read it at the beginning of this year, but I enjoyed it so much more. And like, you can see all the blue. I cry a lot at this one, especially at one section, but also at the epilogue and the bonus story as well. But I absolutely love this. Like, everything starts to get wrapped up, and the people that were miscommunicating in Chain of Iron actually communicate. What? Who would have thought? So yeah, I love this series. Obviously a 5-star. Next up, we have This Coven Won't Break by Isabel Sterling. I read the first book of this absolute years ago, but somehow remembered everything that happened. But this was a 4-star. I really enjoyed the way this went, and also like just the wrap up to everything. It was really well done. I really enjoyed how the characters worked together, and there was some like sad bits, and I was like, this is really sad for this character in particular, but also I understood why the characters had to do the things they did, and it was just like a bittersweet thing. But I really enjoyed this, and I'm so annoyed that I waited so long to read the sequel. Next we have The Damned by Renee Ahdieh. I read The Beautiful back in, I think, 2018 or 2019. It was a while ago. And then I have the second book, and then I have the third book as well, and the fourth one's coming out end of this year, I think. I'm gonna be honest, for almost all of this book I was pretty much feeling a bit about it, and thinking it was probably going to be like a 3-star. It did pull itself together and end up coming out as a 4-star for me, and I will be continuing the series because the ending actually intrigued me enough that I went from being like, oh, I'm just gonna unhaul this series, to being like, no, I need to complete this series because this was so good. I really enjoyed how the ending went. I thought it was really well done, and I like how they've brought in more into the storyline than what there was before. But I do love it when there's a change in the trajectory of the storyline. Next up was Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall. This is the first book I've ever read by Alexis Hall, and it is 100% not going to be the last. This was a 5-star. I absolutely adored this book. Everything about it. Like, literally everything about it. And I think it was made even better by the fact that I started reading this on a Tuesday, and it just so happened to be the Tuesday the Great British Bake Off came back to our screens with a new series, and it just gave me all the feels, and it felt like a season of Bake Off, which is what it's supposed to do, so it did its job well. But I really loved the characters. I liked how you got to know little bits about all of the other contestants as well as her and the love interest. And yeah, I thought it was really well done. Like, I love this. I also loved how, because the main character has a 8-year-old daughter, and I really loved how she handles the daughter's teachers with like their biphobia. That was amazing. Did I mention it was a 5-star? Next up we have With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I loved this book. This was a 4-star. I was so happy with the whole story on this. I will say though, if you're going to watch this, make sure you got snacks, because there is so much talk of food in this. I was so hungry. I fully went to go and get snacks after finishing this, because I was like, my mouth was watering from the amount of food that's talked about and like described, because she wants to like go into like being a chef, and there is a lot of talk of food, and I was just so happy. Next up we have Palace of the Damned by Darren Shan. This is the 3rd book in the Larton Crepsley saga. This was a 4-star. Still really enjoying this. I did like seeing how things progressed with a certain storyline in this, and how it's going to lead into the final book. I am standing by what I have been already saying, that whilst I do really enjoy this, I don't think I'm ever going to reread this series or the Darren Shan saga. Like, whilst I'm enjoying reading them, they're not my favourites. I will reread Demon Art and Zombie to my heart's content, but these just don't give me that same feel, which is a shame. But overall, I'm enjoying them. I just don't think I'll reread them. But I've only got one more book of this one to do, then I've completed the Larton Crepsley saga. Next we have The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. This was a 5-star. I'm so annoyed at myself that I did not read this sooner. Like, I have had this since I went to Florida. I got the Barnes & Noble edition last year when I was in America, and part of me is annoyed I didn't read it sooner because it's so good and I needed it in my life. But also part of me is really glad because the sequel isn't out yet. And I will be buying the sequel when it comes out because I'm gonna need that. I really loved the characters. I loved how the magic system worked, and with them being like essentially like demigods and everything. And the trials were so well described. Like, I fully felt like I was in the world during the trials. They were so well done, and they were so clever as well. And I really loved this book, and I'm so happy. Next was my reread of Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. This was a 5-star, obviously. I did tab a little bit. I've always said Crown of Midnight is my least favourite in the Throne of Glass series, and that is still the case. But whereas before it was my least favourite in the sense that I'm just so like, ugh, about it, now it's my least favourite because all the others are so much better and I enjoy them more. But I actually really enjoyed rereading it this time. The first time I reread it, I didn't. But I don't know, maybe it's because I tabbed and annotated it that, I don't know, it seems to have stuck with me a little bit more this time. And I'm really happy with that, even if it does break me a little bit. And then the final book I read in the month of September was The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. This was really good. This was a 5-star as well. I'm going to be honest, this was nearly a 4-star just based on the fact that my emetophobia could not deal with the amount of times the V word is mentioned and described. When I say described, I mean described that the person is doing that thing. I didn't need that much of that. It wasn't necessary, but I managed to get through, and the actual storyline itself of the whole like reality TV show thing was just so much fun. Like, reading this and the Bake Off book in one week was just everything I needed because it was so much fun, and I am so glad I finally read this. I will be reading more from this author, and in fact this author actually has a Christmassy book which I will be reading in December, so yeah. So that was all the books I read in the month of September. Obviously in September I did my Chloe Made Me Do It video, which if you've seen the vlog that went up on Monday, you will know that it was a very successful week. I read 4 books from Chloe. 3 of them were 5 stars and 1 was a 4-star, so Chloe very much knows what books to recommend to me. She gets my reading taste, and I appreciate that. So thank you, Chloe. Obviously it was Vampire Diaries readathon. I had the best time. Thank you to the other Chloe Reads Books, for asking me to be a co-host for Team Damon. I had so much fun reading. I was genuinely worried after that first week that I wasn't going to do it because I didn't read as much as I expected to on my holiday. But I feel like I brought it back because I ended up completing all 10 prompts and then reading 5 books extra as well. So I feel like I did pretty well for my team, and I'm quite happy with that. I think I might be in the top 30, so I'm okay with that. It would be nice to be in the top 10, but top 30 I'll take because quite a few people took part. My favourite book of the month was Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake. Easily going to reread this so many times. I've already put the sequel on my wish list, and there's a 3rd book coming out next year, and I am so excited because this series is already everything. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite book you read in the month of September was. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.